Yes, there is validity that many people of color in North and South America and the Caribbeans have Israelite ancestry. And there is an undeniable movement of return consciousness that is getting these descendants to wake up.
All right. So the heritage fact. So we got a couple of videos that we're going to be coming. Shalom, cousin Ladon, that we're going to be having as well. To just because remember we're talking about the migration of the Israelites coming from Israel, especially the 10 tribes that came from Assyria. You know, they were taken from Assyria, and this is where I'm wearing this shirt. As well, because they were taken to captivity, and there's the siege of Lachish. Or Lakesh, some people say, in the British Museum, and this is how they depicted the Israelites, right, with afros and woolly beards. So if you can't see my shirt, just get closer. So this is how they depicted us, right? And who does that look like? That looks like us, right? We got the woolly beards and the fros and stuff like that. So they even refer to be in reference to that, right? So we got to understand, how things that's right before us is not any kind of trick. We know we're in the crazy time of the AI world and Photoshop, but you just go right to the museum and we can understand that the true Photoshop was, putting them as European in the coloring books and stuff and the pictures. That was the Photoshop from way back, when they start first depicting the image of the Messiah and the disciples as European, that we know was not correct, right? So that just shows you that how that played on our mind for so many years, and thank Yah that now he's rising it to a point where we can see things at least try to be depicted in a way that is true. So next, so we're gonna be showing a couple of videos, and we want to make sure that people know that these are not our copyright stuff. You gotta get a lot of images off the internet. Not to try to take credit for them, but just for teaching purposes. So, we want to make sure we use the fair use disclaimer and views express disclaimer. So, these are not things that of always reflect our opinions and our positions. And it's more important to show, right, or our affiliates, because it's more important to show, because a lot of people just think this is a black thing, right? This is African Americans trying to find identity. I hear people saying that. Even when I find my Native American heritage, it's in my DNA, and I can show people how I connect back to Native Americans. They say, oh, he's still trying to be like them people. I'm like, it's in my family. Like, not that I'm trying to, I'm really more emphasizing my African heritage than anything else, but it doesn't mean that, the other things are not true. So, we got to make sure that we hear it from other people saying the same things. So that way people can't no longer try to target just African Americans. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and how they're using the media to make this look like a negative thing. But you're going to hear how it's really the opposite, right? From other people, right? So, all right, next. So this is a video that we showed a while back, so talking about the history of Eldad the Danite, and how he said that his people came and migrated over to West Africa, and we showed some of those videos as well, and some of the places that he referred to that still named those places even in West Africa as well, and how he came from East Africa. He went to Spain, he went to Iran, I think I want to say. So he went to so many different places, and they said that he was a true person, even though they're trying to discredit and say that it's not true now, right? So that's how they do, right? They're going to say in front of especially our community that, oh, no, that's not true. Every time I say something in some kind of genealogy group or something, they're like, oh, that's not true. That's a red herring. You're not supposed to listen to that. That's not right. And then when I start showing the facts, they don't come back. They just be quiet, right? So it's like, where's that same energy when I start showing you evidence of not only of things being said by that community, right, the Jewish community, but also when it comes to my DNA, my heritage, my lineage, and all that. You know, where's all the energy there? And I want you all to be able to do the same, because, you know, you look at your heritage, you know, it shows you that we're the same people. So when we play that to talk about the migration, now we're going to talk about, like we talked about last week, how the Yoruba had some sons of Ephraim that actually went over to West Africa. Now, next slide, we're going to talk about the Igbos as well. So we know there was another northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. So we know that the northern kingdom was the 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom was Judah and Benjamin. So just remember that, because like I read about the blessings and stuff in Genesis, remember even the makeup of those people, right? Who were their mothers, right? Did Judah and Benjamin have the same moms? No, right? But people don't think about that. So if Benjamin and Joseph of the northern tribe, who later became Ephraim and Manasseh, they were the ones with the same mom. So really, the northern tribe and the southern tribe are still kin, close kin, even though they separated as they did based upon the sins of Rehoboam. So we'll get into that as well. So next. All right, so this is the first, we'll just go through and just kind of show you some of the things, but this is the first one, and this is coming from Unpacked, and this is coming from the Jewish side, talking about the Igbo people of Nigeria. So, you know, you're here, they'll talk about the war and stuff like that, and what happened and how they got separated and their similarities and some of the differences. So make sure you take you know, good notes if you're taking notes, or listen very carefully, because, you know, a lot of the stuff is what I've been showing people about, how now you have to convert based upon a religious thing, and it's no longer based upon the bloodline, right? So just remember this as we go through it. I'll try to stop in certain places, but for the sake of time, I don't want to stop but so much. All right. So we'll start playing that one.
Most Nigerians are either Christian or Muslim, but in a corner of southeast Nigeria, some members of the Igbo tribe keep kosher, pray in synagogues, and celebrate Jewish holidays, which makes them Jewish, right? Well, depends on who you ask. Under traditional Jewish law, Jews are those who were born to a Jewish mother or have formally converted to Judaism. And yet,
So he just said Jews based upon the mother. So we know in the Bible it says he begot, he begot, he begot. And even some of the Israelites had mothers who were not Israelites, right? So a lot of them had mothers that was not even Judah married a Canaanite woman, right? So you can see that something happened across time that defines what a Jew is, right? Versus an Israelite. So that's why we refer to ourselves as Israelites, not as Jews, because we're not based upon the conversion through what they call halakha or halakha. And that's what he's talking about. So they're basically requiring, even though we are connected to the bloodline, that we go through a religious conversion to enter as an Israeli citizen even today. So keep that in mind. All right.
many Nigerians see the Igbo as Jewish, regardless of what they practice or believe. As for the Igbo themselves, well, they're split. Some identify as Jews, others don't. So who's right? And why is Igbo identity so complicated? The Igbo people have lived in what we now call Nigeria for thousands of years. They're known for their sophisticated metalwork and glassmaking techniques, not to mention a unique banking system that's still in use today. Plus, they've been practicing a form of democracy for centuries. Until European Christian missionaries showed up in the 19th century, the Igbo practiced a traditional religion they called Omenana. Some of their customs included circumcising their sons, offering burnt sacrifices, and undergoing various purification rituals. The most uncommon of these rituals involves sending a goat out into the wilderness to carry away the community's sins, which will become relevant in a minute. You'll find similar customs throughout Africa. So, what makes the Igbo unique? Well, according to the anthropologist Dr. Daniel Liss,
so he said that you can find the similar customs throughout Africa. So now he's trying to say, that the Igbo, even though they had the similar customs as other tribes around them, that's only the Igbo or the Igbo are the ones that have the Jewish customs, right? But it's really more the tribes because they share the same DNA, right? How do you share the same DNA and not be cousins or connected to the same path? So one tribe came out of Israel are now in West Africa. Why wouldn't the other ones that share the same DNA and the same customs that go back to the Bible not be? Right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. And they have conferences about this. So this is when I was waking up. I found this thing and I was like, this is interesting, you know, that they're talking openly about this stuff. And here in America, it's like you kind of have to kind of talk about it and not feel like you're going to get persecuted for saying it, right? So it's like they're trying in certain areas. Why are they trying to talk publicly about this, where it's acceptable, even, you know, charge money and videos and documentaries, where here it's like hush hush, don't say it, right? When we come from the same people, same bloodlines and stuff. So keep that in mind also.
A lot. Dr. List began studying the Igbo after a chance encounter with an Igbo man at a bar in Switzerland, and he points out that some Igbo customs have an unusual twist.
Circumcision is quite widespread in Africa. That doesn't prove anything. But then you could say, okay, what's the date the circumcision is performed? Circumcision on the 8th day is right there in the first sources on the Igbo.
Plus, remember that whole sending a goat out into the desert to carry away sins? Well, that sounds a lot like an ancient Israelite custom. Ever heard of scapegoats? That's where the concept comes from. So are these overlapping practices merely a coincidence? Or do they indicate an ancient connection? Long before they knew of the Igbo's existence, many Jews and Christians believed that Africa might be home to a hidden pocket of Israelites. Why? The Talmud claims that some portions of the 10 lost tribes ended up in Africa. Plus, the biblical book of Zephaniah states that dispersed Israelites will return from beyond the rivers of Cush. So when the British Empire sent expeditions up the river Niger, the UK's chief rabbis handed colonial authorities a pack of letters written in Hebrew, just in case they happened to encounter any tribes of Israel. To our knowledge, they didn't find anyone who spoke Hebrew, but they did find...
So he said that it was in the Talmud. So they have identified that there's Israelite tribes in West Africa. So why is this like a debate? Why is this discussion? Not only that Western Christians, right, that came out and they said that, hey, there's these Jewish customs around these African people, but even well before that, you have Jewish Talmud saying that the lost tribes or the 10 tribes of the northern tribe migrated to West Africa. So, you know, why is this a debate now? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand why this is just like not common knowledge among our people, no matter if you believe we're the Israelites or not. Why is this not common knowledge among our people in churches and stuff like that, especially black churches, right? All right. And then he talks about that scripture, Zephaniah 3:10. So that's one I use a lot. And it also talks about, you know, even some of the feast days in that scripture as well. So, you know, there's that connection. So it just shows you how important our heritage is. If you look not just about, you know, how Yah says he's going to bring these people from those places and bring them back to Israel, but also the customs and the heritage and how those are important to our people as well, right? Instead of doing the pagan European things, we should be doing the things that Yah has called us that's in the Bible to do, right? Okay.
Something interesting. The British, who set up shop in parts of West Africa, brought along Christian missionaries to teach locals about the Bible, which records the story of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And as the Igbo were learning about and even converting to Christianity, they referred to themselves as descendants of the ancient Israelites. They recognized their customs in the customs of the Hebrew Bible. British missionaries loved this. It supported their narrative that Christianity is the natural evolution of Judaism. But had the Igbo always identified this way? Or did this identification start once the Brits showed up? Like everything to do with the Igbo, depends who you ask. Traditional Igbo leaders will tell you that their people have always identified as descendants of the tribe of God.
So when I was growing up in Nigeria, everybody proudly said, oh yes, Igbos came from Israel, the land of Israel. It was a common knowledge. We all said it loudly. We didn't care who said about it.
Most academics disagree, believing this connection only started after the British arrived. Either way, one thing is indisputable. By the late 1800s, leading Igbo intellectuals were writing.
So I just want to emphasize, that's the reason why I emphasized earlier that it came out of the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, and now he's like, oh, British came, and they say it came from there. You see how a lot of times in that community they go back and forth, right? They'll say that it's out of this tradition and it's hard evidence, and then they'll throw some doubt out there, right? So scholars are saying that, oh, they got it, but shouldn't he be like, oh no, this is in the Talmud, this is our book, the Talmud, this is important that people know this. No, they're kind of throwing some questionable doubt every time they show a fact. And the same thing when it comes to the Igbo, right? As you saw the picture, and they said the Igbo people came from Erie. What color was the picture? Right? It was looking like a European more than somebody from Africa, right? So they basically, throwing it visual that, oh, he came from this, European Jew, and they migrated to West Africa and made it with the black people and became this black tribe, right? No, they were originally black, like my shirt is, and then they migrated over to West Africa and migrated with more, mixed in with more Hamites, because Judah, like I said, if the world, the modern day word for Jew means a conversion to Judaism, but the more ancient way that they used to say, it means you descend from Judah. So if you descend from Judah, that means you got to have a Shemite daddy and a Hamite African mama, right? Because that was a Canaanite. And so he even married with Tamar, who was a Canaanite. So you got to show that bloodline of a Shemite and a Hamite in your bloodline. So there might be some videos that I will show you when the guy goes around in Israel and he asks people about that, and you'll hear their response as well, but that won't be today. So, and this is Equiano. He's very important. We're going to talk a little bit about him probably next week, but it's important for you to understand this connection also and how he was sent as slavery over into the West. All right.
At length about their connection to the ancient Israelites. Though most Igbo practiced Christianity, some began to take an interest in Judaism. But like stereotypical Jews, they all took a different approach. Some mixed Christian and Jewish rituals with their ancestral traditions, forming the Sabbatharian movement. Some went back to their ancestral religion, Omenana, which they believed to be biblical Judaism. And then, Rabbinic Judaism came to Igbo land.
We have a rabbi!
That is the form of Judaism that most Jews practice today. Lighting Hanukkah candles, holding Passover seders, praying in synagogues, and rocking out to the Miami Boys Choir. Okay, maybe that's just me. And so, some Igbo began incorporating rabbinic Jewish rituals into their practice, while others embraced it full on. So let's recap, because things are about to get wild. Many Igbo identify with an ancient Israelite origin.
Sorry, I had to stop that because, once again, it's this blending of modern day Judaism in within the culture. But what did they emphasize? Did they emphasize, what the things that they were doing already before those customs came in? Or is that something that they're now trying to accredit and associate back to the culture there? So once again, there's this connection that they're doing, connecting us to, to what's going on in modern day Judaism versus emphasizing what was based upon the biblical ancient Judaism or ancient Yahwehism or ancient Israelite belief. Our heritage, our customs, it's just like he said, some people don't identify. There's Christians out there that know that there's Israelites from this tribe, right? So why don't Christian African Americans who descend from these tribes also identify as being Israelites just like they do, right? Or even like the ancient customs from the African ancestry belief, you got to look into that. There's videos about that too. Some of them are paid. Like I said, you got kicked out of Israel for a reason. So what was the reason that the Israelites got kicked out, especially the northern tribe, as we've been talking about before the time of Hezekiah, when they got kicked out, right? Because they start, dealing with all those different customs, and the Syrians took them out and replaced them with some other people. Remember, we talked about how the lions and all them started attacking them. They had to go get one of the Israelites preached to teach them, and they became the Samaritans. But what happened to the original Israelites that got kicked out in Assyria? Where did they migrate to after leaving Assyria? So they say that in the Talmud, it says they went to Africa. All right. So just want to make sure you start seeing that connection, that they're always trying to go back to modern day Judaism and not emphasize the ancient customs, but the modern day stuff, right? That's a lot different than the Bible, right? It's more based on the Talmud than it is based upon the Bible or the Torah of the Bible. So there's a written Torah and an oral Torah. So when you see written Torah, that means the Bible, the Tanakh, the Torah, first 5 books, the Pentateuch. But when they start talking about oral Torah, they're talking about more in reference to the Talmud and the Tanakh, or the Talmud and some of the other stuff as well. So just want to make sure I provided some clarity for that. All right.
Of these, only a tiny minority actually practices rabbinic Judaism. So only that tiny minority identifies as Jewish, right? Not so fast. There's one more complication in the mix.
The moment the British entered the picture in the Igbo history, in Nigeria, in the evolvement of the Nigerian state, the British bring along their kind of anti-Semitism.
Now, hate isn't specific to any one culture. Every society has its prejudices and scapegoats. Yes, that's a callback. Now, historically, different ethnic groups in Nigeria had minimal contact with one another. Each group had their own system of government. But in 1900, the British turned Nigeria into a colony, which brought each of Nigeria's ethnic groups into competition for power and opportunities. And when different groups compete for resources, trouble is sure to follow. The Igbo were a highly successful ethnic minority with unique cultural practices, which opened them up to a lot of hatred. The Brits gave this hatred a new language, a new set of tropes and stereotypes. So as the Igbo left their homeland in search of opportunities, they encountered a form of prejudice that looked a lot like anti-Semitism. Because anti-Semitism, unlike other forms of hatred, is rooted in conspiracy theories about a small group of people pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
The image that the Igbo are money-loving people, very greedy and domineering, it's a conspiracy theories,
Sound familiar? It's basically lifted from the anti-Semites playbook. Anti-Semites don't care how you identify. They don't care if you're religious, if you're on the right or the left. They don't even care if other Jews accept you as Jewish or not, because anti-Semitism isn't rational.
When I was growing up in Nigeria, it became a thing that your parents will call into the bedroom and tell you, look, remember, no matter how much of the other language you think you speak or you think you can identify as them, they all know you're Igbo first, and second, you know we come from Israel. They don't like you as an Igbo person, and they know that we come from Israel. Mind how you walk.
Nigeria achieved independence in 1960. It was a moment of hope for all its people who were tired of British rule. But establishing a post-colonial country is never easy, and the instability brought with it terrible anti-Igbo violence.
The Igbo were purged from the military, from everywhere, from government positions, from universities, outside of Igbo land. So in order to survive, really, millions of Igbo had to go back to the southeast.
So it didn't matter whether the Igbo saw themselves as descendants of ancient Israelites. It didn't matter if most of them actually practiced Christianity. And it definitely didn't matter if Jews outside of Nigeria accepted them as Jewish. As far as they were concerned, they were being violently attacked for tropes that looked and felt like Jew hatred. Just like the Jewish people, the Igbo found themselves fleeing back to their native homeland to escape persecution. And just like the Jewish people, they wanted to be the masters of their own destinies. So in 1967, they did something that the Nigerian government really didn't like. They seceded, establishing an independent country called Biafra.
This wish for independence of the southeast of Biafra, that was because of the massacres, because they just feared for their lives, and that's why they said we need our own state.
But like we just said, trying to establish an independent country isn't always a smooth process. For 3 years, Nigeria and Biafra were locked in a hideous conflict. Nigerian forces massacred hundreds of thousands of Biafran civilians, and many more were starved to death. The state of Biafra was defeated, and the Igbo were forcefully reintegrated into Nigeria and reduced to poverty. Non-Igbo Nigerians call this period the Nigerian Civil War. Many Igbo call it the Biafran Genocide. It was just one more point of identification.
So remember that word Biafra, right? Biafra is that separate place they were trying to establish. It didn't get established, but there is a Biafra flag, and that area was called Biafra. Also think about it, that they were being persecuted within Africa, right? So people moving back, I want to make sure you understand what the political thing is in those areas as you move back to multiple places in Africa, because right now with our U.S. passport, we're important, right? We're special with the U.S. passport. But if Trump or whatever he wants to, is doing like this thing that he's doing against African Americans in Africa, right? What if he, now says that passport is no longer important? What happens to us? How are those places that we're migrating to or among? How do those tribes look at us, right? Without that money, as well, right? They look at what they call me big brother. When I went with Ghana, big brother, somebody told me from there, like, when he called you that means they want some money, right? So they look at it as like any other country. In some of the places that you go, like Jamaica and other places that you go as a tourist, even to Israel, they're going to treat you one way, even as an African American. But without that passport, that American identity, how do they look at us, right? So it's very important to understand the cultures and other people in those areas, because even like the airway, right, in Ghana, the airway people are looked at as the bottom of the barrel, right? Even in them, they won't even allow them to rent out certain places and stuff. Our sister Sarum shows us some of that, and they say, "Oh no, those are the evil people. Don't mess with them." So there's even this identity issue among our own people. Even here, we used to have it here in America, like the more fair-skinned and light-skinned people versus dark-skinned people, right? Like they already had a stigmatism, and thankfully that kind of went away here in America. But in other places, they still have even more sections. I think in South Africa, they have black, colored, and some other, white and something else in between. I think they got 4 different breakups of 3 of them are connected to black people. So it's like, what? How do you have 3 different breakups of black people? So just know when you go to these areas, because the Bible even talks about, and I think Ezekiel 37 or 38 talks about how even Put and Cush will be against the children of Israel, right? So, Cush, it means, Africa, Ethiopia, not just that Ethiopian country, but it used to be called, majority of Africa was called Cush. So what does that mean for us as well? So just take that in mind when it comes to prophecy also. But you can see how they're trying to connect our issues along with them. So, with what happened to them, right? Anti-Semitic. So if that's the truth, when people look at us over in America and they, treat us bad, is that anti-Semitism if we come from the Igbos, right? If other groups, why do you have a black Jew and a white Jew? Isn't that shit supposed to be Jew? So, even here, there's some different segmentation of what a Jew is, even if they label us by color, as well. So keep that in mind too. So the same things that said to our community, we should be also able to say freely between the other communities that look at us in the same way. All right. So please continue.
Between Igbo and Jews. Again, it didn't matter if the Igbo identified as Jewish, or as ancient Israelites, or as Christians, or as Sabbatharians, or something else entirely. Jews around the world sympathized deeply with their plight. Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel spoke out on their behalf.
So I remember when I saw for the first time children of Biafra, hungry, I didn't sleep. I tried everything I could really around me, and to write articles and call up people and organize activities to send food to those children.
Several Jewish organizations appealed to the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee for aid, testifying that, quote, "We cannot be silent in the face of the deliberate destruction of human life in Biafra." In a White House memo to President Nixon, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger described the Igbo as the wandering Jews of West Africa, gifted, aggressive, westernized, at best envied and resented, but mostly despised by their neighbors in the Federation. But here's the thing. Anti-Semitism doesn't define Judaism. Our identity is thousands of years old. We know where we come from. We know who we are. The same is true for the Igbo. Their identity isn't defined by their persecutors or by the people who hate them. It's defined by their roots, by their history.
Denial of the Israelite or the Jewish or the Hebrew identity or the Igbo identity is never ever going to be a solution to anti-Semitism. I believe that the solution will be identifying with who you are and then facing the problem squarely.
Many, though not all, Igbo identify as descendants of ancient Israelites. But that doesn't mean they see themselves as Jews, even if they practice some customs that are considered Jewish. For most Igbo, circumcising their sons on the 8th day or getting married under a canopy are cultural rather than religious customs. a homage to their ancient lineage. That's why so many Igbo integrate Jewish customs into their lives, even as they practice Christianity.
Every Igbo, including even the guy in the Vatican that is a cardinal, lives by traditions that Jews will recognize as Israelite traditions.
I think that's really cool, because unlike missionary groups like Jews for Jesus, they have no interest in replacing Judaism or converting other Jews. As long as we both respect each other's boundaries, our shared customs are a beautiful source of solidarity and allyship. I accidentally stumbled into an Igbo gathering in Atlanta recently. When I told the organizers I'm from Israel, they got excited. They even told me, hey, our ancestors are from there. We love Israel. It was a really nice moment of warmth in a world that doesn't always welcome Jews. But do all Jews welcome the Igbo? Especially the thousands of Igbo living in Nigeria who identify as Jewish and practice Rabbinic Judaism? These Igbo have taught themselves to read and pray in Hebrew. Their prayer services look almost exactly like Orthodox Jewish services around the world.
Shema Israel, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Echad.
All we want is just recognition. Just recognition. We want to be able to walk into any synagogue and be welcomed and seen as a brother, as a sister.
In fact, hundreds of Igbo have even moved to Israel, where they proudly send their children to serve in the IDF. But their status there is complicated. After coming to Israel, they formally converted to Judaism through an Orthodox rabbinical court. And yet, due to internal politics, the state refused to recognize them as Jewish. Such incidents have led to a feeling of profound isolation among Igbo in Israel.
My first son has completed his service in the IDF. My second son, Joel, is currently serving in the IDF. And there are so many others. Basically, I would like the Igbo Jewish community in Israel to be accorded their pride of place among all the Jewish people here in Israel.
Whether in Nigeria or Israel, the minority of Igbo that practices Judaism is in a very tough position. In reclaiming their ancient identity, they've done all they can to learn about rabbinic Jewish practices. But mainstream Jewish authorities won't accept them as is unless they formally convert, in some cases, for a second time. Though some rabbis in both Israel and America are challenging this idea and are starting to build a relationship with Igbo communities. So, are the Igbo Jewish? It's such a complicated question. History has linked Igbo and Jewish identities in uncanny ways. We are connected by shared customs and experiences, including a history of survival in the face of persecution. Identities evolve over time, but the Jewish people and the Igbo, no matter how they identify, remain firmly rooted in the ancient traditions that have sustained us for millennia.
All right, so you can see how they're not even received by Israel, even if they convert. Right, so they'll let them live there, but they won't call them the same people. So even among their own people, they tried to talk about how they're being persecuted. But isn't that a type of persecution as well when they try to go and be who they say that they are, and even practice the same customs, and still are not accepted as being the same, right? So that's the reason why I showed y'all months back about the Black Jews, right? Michelle Obama's cousin. Capus Fune, they're trying to convert to being to do Judaism and practices and convert, even though they know about our Israelite bloodline identity, that they're trying to convert in order to be more accepted. And, still you can see that there's this stigmatism about they're still not Jewish, right? And Jewish is an interesting word for being a Jew, even from a biblical standpoint. If you look up the word Jewish in Acts, it talks about one way, and you look up, in other places, it says there's also connection, but I won't get into that today. All right, so the next video that we have is actually talking about, this is from the Amin, I guess, Ministries. What's his name? I can't remember his name. Shapira, Shapira. So, we got mixed feelings about Shapira here, but he's going to go to the Igbo land. He's going to talk about some of the stuff that he sees there and talk to the king. We're not going to show all the stuff about the king, but we're going to try to emphasize some of the parts so people will know this is coming not from us. It's not from the Black community. The African Americans not know who they want, trying to take somebody else's culture. It shows you that our culture was the more ancient culture. So, you know, if we're more ancient, what does that mean to the other stuff, right? Are we embracing our original culture, or are we trying to grab onto somebody else's culture, right? Depending on which route you go, if you're trying to do conversion, you're trying to grab onto somebody else's culture. But if you connect back to our ancient Israelite customs, right, before we turned paganized and all the stuff that happened in Israel and also going into Egypt, into West Africa, which I taught before, all that paganism that went in, that kicked us out. But if we go back to the original thing where we're Mamleket Kohanim, the kingdom of priests that Yah has called us to be, a holy set apart nation, then that's who we are. That's exactly who he was trying to help us to be. And Shabbat Shalom, Nisia, and Elder Thomas, thank y'all for joining us as well. So we're going to show this next one here. You're going to hear them talking about the you know, way that they're current modern day worshiping.
Giving you today a special report. I'd like to walk with me and show you where I'm at. We are in a very sacred place, actually, for the Igbo people. We are in a place that's called Obu God. What does the word Obu mean? The temple of God. According to the legend, and according to some historical information, the question is how the Igbo people, by the way, the word Igbo related to the word Hebrew. Obviously, when they first came here, they asked him, who are you? They said, we are Hebrews. Well, they said, well, no, Hebrew, we are Igbos. That's how they got the name Igbo. And we are inside right now, show them the temple of God. So remember, the 10 tribes have been exiled, and about 630 BC, they started their migration all the way to Africa. And according to the artifacts here of the Igbo people, some of this related to the tribe of God, the people of God, and this is a place that is a memorial for the tribe of God and for the people of God. So this is an ancestry that is not as important to them. It's important to every Jewish person in the world to see that. Shalom. Can you say something about this place? Can you tell a little bit about this place?
As you were saying, this is Obu God.
Obu God. Obu
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
The palace.
The palace
Of God.
of God. Yes.
So really, is that a common belief for the people that the descendants of the tribe of God came here?
Exactly.
Exactly, right?
Yes, that's true.
Which is not far-fetched. The 10 tribes have been exiled
Yeah.
and they settled here.
They settled
So
here.
tell me, this place here, I notice on this place, absolutely amazing. This is shocking to me. This is called a mezuzah.
Mezuzah, yes.
This is a
One
mezuzah.
of rabbi from Israel.
So a rabbi from Israel, check this out, I wanted to show them. A rabbi from Israel visited this place and he put a mezuzah on the door.
Yeah, exactly.
A mezuzah make it a Jewish home.
Exactly. That is
So that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I have to touch the mezuzah and kiss it. Everybody, when you come to a Jewish home, you touch the mezuzah and you kiss it. So please do this in honor of this place, okay? Absolutely. Let us walk in. Is it okay to walk in? Shalom. Shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. I'm Rabbi Shapira. I'm Rabbi Shapira. No need to get up. No need to get up. Shabbat shalom to you from Israel. Shabbat shalom from Israel. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Thank you for inviting me so much. Thank you so much. Now, I want to understand.
So also notice how they kind of got up we kind of do that here. I know when we used to allow, older people come into the room, used to raise up and greet them. So it just shows you. I think that's even in the Bible talks about doing that. So you hear them saying Shabbat Shalom. This is in Nigeria, right? It's not just some African American culture that we just inherited and decided to do whatever we wanted to do, right? This is some of the stuff that they're also identifying with over and where we come from in Africa. So just want to make sure we emphasize that some of these things that we're doing, they come out of the Bible and our heritage and, connecting back to who we are from the biblical standpoint. And even Gad, it says, as for Gad, raiders shall raid him, but he will raid at their heel. So that was the prophecy. So raiders will raid him, right? And then he at the heel, sounds like at the end, he's going to raid them. So it's interesting, that the Igbo people were raided, right, were attacked. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens even in the end, all right? But he's going to sit down, and he said most of it around the temple, but we just want you to make sure this is the king's area of these people, right? So the Igbo people. So you can see how they're respecting. And even the king, you'll see, come in with some of the Jewish, the Star of David that they say didn't come from the Jewish people that came in. He's not going to say it's this video, but they'll say that basically it came from their custom and their history. It's even on the money. Was it one time they put it on the money? I think it was the British that when they first colonized that they put that star on some of the money there as well. So you can continue to play it.
And those men were...
Abraham.
Yeah, but I'm asking, who are those men?
Yeah.
The cabinet.
The cabinet. So we just met with the kings, the custodian. They're like the custodians of this place. Is it going to be a possibility to ask him a few questions?
Of course, you are free. You are here to ask any question.
Ask any question.
Okay. Okay.
He's coming.
Come out. He's coming.
Okay.
King is coming.
Hallelujah. So we're about to meet the main custodian of this place. What you're seeing here, friends, is prophetic. This is not a show. This is not a movie. This is reality. You saw the mezuzah on the door. So that means the Jewish people know that this is belonging to the children of Israel. And that is incredible that we were able. Thank you so much to the bishop for pulling his connection, for allowing us to come and see this place. And friend, I want to take a moment as we're waiting on the kings. I'm sure everybody's anxious to tell you something. We have started a very serious process with the Igbo people. The king is here.
Is coming.
Yeah, please.
And in our tradition, when it comes in entourage, and everybody has to stand up.
Yeah, continue. No, don't stop.
So my wife's gonna play a little bit more. Just play it for her. Stop her. Trying to get that man's face, but that man that was in the orange, yeah, right there. Just remember him, right? Because he's gonna be in the next video as well. So this is gonna be one whole visit of this Jewish man coming here, and now he's going to see the king. You can play it because it's not like that. We're just trying to show the king, and you can see the king there has a Star of David, even though we don't think that that's a biblical beginning symbol, but they do. And you can see the Hebrew writing that's on his clothes, and you can see that they basically know who they are from a standpoint or connect back to the Israelite customs. All right. So that's that video. And then in the next one, it's the same guy that he's going to be Shapira, that he's going to, So that was it. So this is the next one, right? So this is also, I just found out that all this is from 7 years ago, but this is all the same visit. And they're going to be talking about some of the customs. They're going to talk about, Ecuador, as we talked about before, the guy who got enslaved. Some of the language, as well as at the end, it's going to be interesting, right? Because we're talking about this conversion and stuff. So we'll hear some of that conversation also. All right.
Shalom Chaverim and Bruchim Abayim from Avat Ami Ministries and Yeshivat Shuvu to a special edition of our program, When Jews Meet Yeshua. Today we are here recording in an outdoor setting among all the Igbo people around me. So let's give the Lord a hand for the Igbo people. It is going to be a very special and very fascinating program where we are going to be discussing the past and maybe a little bit of the present even of the Igbo people. We all know that Israel, northern tribes have been scattered all throughout the nations. Some has defected, as I explained in the past, to the Judah kingdom, but some have been scattered. Today I have with me in my program two men from the Igbo people who are having a strong claim that they are part of the children of Israel by lineage. I have with me today David. David, shalom.
Shalom.
How are you doing?
It's my pleasure seeing you.
Thank you for being with us. And I have with me Abraham. Shalom, Abraham.
Shalom, Kavrim. It's nice meeting all of you.
It is great to have you with us. Over these last few days, I've been fascinated to go to a place. It's like the Igbo God, the palace of God, seeing some of the ancient Igbo writings, hearing the story of the three trees, to hear about some of the customs and the traditions of the Igbo people. Let me start by asking you a question. Do you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the Igbo people are part of the tribes of Israel? Do you know this beyond a shadow of a doubt? Let me start with David and then we'll go to Abraham. David, do you know that beyond a shadow of a doubt?
Yes, I know beyond every reasonable doubt that the Igbo race are part of the lost 10 tribe of Israel. This came to fore around 1861 when an Anglican missionary, Dr. G.T. Basden, came down here. Now he found when the Igbos were still naked. So he found the 8-day circumcision of the Igbo man, and he know down here when an Igbo man die by hanging, by suicide, he is no longer buried like every other person that die naturally. So Dr. G.T. Basden, after conducting his research, came forward with a book which he entitled Among the Igbo Jews. Among the Igbo Jews. So in that book, he made it categorically clear that whoever wants to associate with the Igbo must first of all acquaint himself with the Mosaic law. So he wrote this book and took it, according to Professor Nkwalezi, to the King of England, the King George V.
Interesting.
And told him that he has made one of the greatest discoveries of the century, discovering a branch of the Hebrew community in Nigeria. So now the king discouraged him from publishing the book so that the Igbos will not know that they are part of the lost 10 tribe of Israel. That if they happen to know, that they will no longer accept Christianity, which they came to propagate. So Dr. G.T. Basden could not publish his book until 1934.
That's 70 years. 70 years.
Yes, from 1861 to 1934. In that book, you will see 5 naked Igbo virgins.
Wow.
So then they knew. How did they get to know? An Igbo man from here, a community called the Seke, he was stolen and sold into slavery.
Wow.
And he was taken to West Indies, where a British soldier bought him and took him to England and gave him to his aunt who trained him.
So he's talking about Equinado. So same thing the other guy talks about. He's talking about the tradition of Equinado and how he basically got taken slave and he was freed later on. And he wrote a book about, his life and his, journey is through slavery and getting freed and becoming, a wealthy man. And also his connection back to the Bible that he read. He didn't realize, there was connection. Of course, they wouldn't call themselves Jews because Jews is a modern day word, right? So you'll see even among different places in Nigeria, or even West Africa, Cameroon. Cameroon's capital is Yehudi. I asked some Cameroonians where that name come from, and they're not really sure. But Yehudi is connected very closely to the Yahudims, what the Jews were called from the tribe of Judah, Yehuda, Yehudims, Yehudi. You can see those connections, okay? So he's basically, I know some of his, some people can't understand some of the different dialects and stuff that they're, speaking in English that it's kind of hard to understand. So just wanted to make sure you understand what he's talking about. And just to go ahead and let you know, the next guy is going to start talking about the language and how the language is connected also to the Israelite language as well, the ancient language as well as some of the more modern as well. So Hebrew as well.
So then Olaodekwanu was serving the woman conscientiously. So somewhere along the line, the old woman developed interest in Olaodekwanu and told him that if he's able to reimburse her or part of the money spent in buying him, that she will set him free. So the woman was allowing Olaodekwanu to go out and do some odd jobs and make some money, and he was reimbursing the woman. Before the woman knew what was happening, Olaodekwanu was able to reimburse her. So she set him free. Olaodekwanu was the first Igbo man to go to school. He studied in England.
Amazing.
That was in 1897. 1798.
Let me, this is fascinating. Let me ask you a question, Abraham. The origin of the word Igbo, it's such a resemblance to the word Hebrew. What do we know if we're going back, way back? What can we know about the Igbo tradition? Is it truly related to the word Hebrew?
Yeah, thank you.
Before we're talking about your tradition, I mean, just the similarity in the word Hebrew is already kind of strange.
All right. Thank you so much. You see, here in this interview, I will also want to do some dissecting as far as it concerns the Igbo language and the Hebrew language.
There's similarities.
Yes, so much similarities.
Interesting.
And you see, my own brother here, Nacho, maybe we'll be talking on the intellectual aspect, while I talk on the aspect that has to do with our connection as Israelites, as is contained in the Holy Book of Bible, and also as it concerns our language. Now, coming to the word Igbo, before, our people are known as the Igbos, and after some time, it changed to Igbo.
Okay.
It changed to Igbo because the GBO came in instead of the IBO.
Okay.
And now the IBO has a close resemblance, like a bastardized form of Eba,
okay,
from where we get the word Hebrew.
Okay.
So, just the same way that in our language we say Bia. Bia means come, but it also means enter. Come and enter.
Enter.
Yes, and when you come to Hebrew, you also see.
So if you heard, he was talking about the Igbo ended up turning to Igbo, right? They put the G in there. Before it didn't have the G, it was more Igbo. And he connected Igbo to Eber, right? And that's important because the word Hebrew is not the Hebrew word for Hebrew. The real word for Hebrew is ever, right? Eve. That kind of like goes back to Eber, right? So he's connecting Igbo to Eber as well. So it's just, shows you how important it is to understand, some of those connections back to, because there's even like the Ivri. You can see on some of the maps in Africa that says Ivri, I-V-I-R, those areas that the Hebrews lived in Africa. So it goes all back to Eber, of the Israelite forefather, Eber, where the Hebrew people came from. That name continues to go through multiple tribes throughout West Africa also. And then he says the bo or ba, he was saying, which means come. Isn't there a song that we know? Kum ba ya, right? Ba, right, means come. So when you say kum ba ya, you're saying kum, arise, come is ba ya, as in Yahuwah, or some people say Yahweh, right? So it just shows you how that language, is connected all through the Gullah Geechee people here from North Carolina all the way down to Jacksonville, right? So that's where the Gullah Geechee, the oldest ancestor to Africa and America, to African Americans as they call us, is the Gullah Geechee people who made the song Kum Bai, or as he say, Ba Ya, right? So it just shows you how important it is to understand our language and our connection, our history, because even in the Gullah Geechee people, there's a connection to Ewe, right? To the Ewe or Ewe language as well, the Akan, they speak Twi, right? So a lot of these languages have been mixed into the slaves that came over there. And it's important because they're going to say, who were the slaves? Like the first guy said, the slaves were mostly the people who are of those Jewish communities, right? That was of the smaller communities that was weaker, and they're the ones that got sold into slavery. All right. So just want to make sure you understand some of the stuff. And he's going to talk about rice and how the rice word, because remember, a lot of the people in that was taken to America, especially, there's a thing called Carolina gold, which was rice. Rice was the major commodity here in America at one time, because at first it was the sugar plantations in the Caribbean, and when that land ran out, they start bringing the people from Barbados over into, into the Carolinas, because remember, North Carolina and South Carolina used to be one Carolina, and then also, they were looking for those slaves, was looking to enslave people who could actually were over rice, that knew how to grow rice. So, that shows us if you're from North Carolina and South Carolina, there's a good chance you have Barbados ancestry, and also connects to that Biafra place where we'll talk about a little bit more, as well as West Africa, Senegambia as well. All of them, some of them were rice growers, and that's the reason why they focused a lot on us too. All right.
That Bia means entrance.
Wow, interesting.
Now, so we have a lot of things like the rice, what we call rice in Hebrew, what we call rice in Igbo land here, in some part of the ethnic groups. Yeah. Because you see, when you come to Igbo land, we have different, I put it this way, we have different accents. People who speak the same Igbo language, but with the different, dialect. Let me use the word dialect. Now, just like when you come to Israel, you know of the people who say Sibolet, and the others say Shibolet. Wow. We have these differences.
Hold on a second, just continue.
We have these differences also in the Igbo language. We have people who, use dialects.
Okay. So the different dialects. Any of the dialects, let me ask you a question. Yeah. Any of the dialects in the Igbo language, are there any words in the Igbo language that you're aware that come from Hebrew?
Of course, so many of them. I have a lot of them here.
Can you give one or two examples?
One of the examples that I have here is that in one of the dialects, the people call the Intezi people. The Intezi people is a part of the Igbo tribe that says Bo. It means the same thing. Come. Boyo. They say Boyo. Come here.
Wow.
So the same word, the same
how do they say it? They say it again.
They say Boyo.
In Hebrew, you say Bohena. It sounds almost exactly the same. Bohena.
Yeah. So they say it sounds the same thing. And when we come to the word rice in Igbo, there is a tribe in Igbo called the Abakaliki people. What they call rice is erase. Why the Hebrew call it ores.
Wow, it's come from the Hebrew.
When you come to the Igbo land, we have the name Adam. The Adam, what we know is this, we call Adama.
Soil.
We have Adama when we go to the tribe called the Arondizog. Adama also means earth. Adama means also earth. Then we have a name given to an Igbo first daughter. We call him Adama. Oh. Adama sounds also like the Adam that we have. So many things to show the similarity between the Israelites and us.
So just to let you know, we cut this short because it's like an hour long. So he's going to go from here, and then you're going to hear him talk about being ancient Israelites. Okay, so you'll see a blurb to kind of go across where we fast forwarded the video. All right.
But it is not just a mere speculation.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So, if you give me time.
That's it? Oh, I thought you got the rest of it. Okay. There's a part of it that goes after this that we might show next time. But he then is going to go in and say, do you want to be ancient Israelites or do you want to be Jews? Right? So he's distinguishing the one in the middle, the Shapiro, I think that's his name. He basically going to say, do you want to be ancient Israelites or do you want to be Jews? Like he's separating the two. Then he's going to talk about converting, do you want to convert? Would you convert to being Jews, even though, and they're going to come some back and forth. So we might show that next time. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to have it in this one, but then let's click on the link real quick since we're already here. I try to see if we can find it. Because you still got the time.
Shalom Chaverim and Bruchim Abayim from Ahavat Amim Ministries and Yeshivat Shivu to a special edition of our program, When Jews Meet Yeshua. Today we are here recording.
And they will close the pit and return back home.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said,
no, we don't have.
There are so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes, and I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites, or you want to be Jews? That is the question I have for you.
Thank you. I'll answer that question.
Go ahead, I will help you.
After the demise of Solomon, we now have the northern and southern kingdom of Israel.
Yes.
So when we talk about Jews, Jews are Israelites, but all Israelites are not Jews. The 10 tribes that got lost are not Jews. They were Israelites.
Well, it's depending.
So minority cannot swallow the majority. We are here. We are the majority down here.
So you gotta understand, like that picture I showed with the northern tribe and the southern tribe, right? Really, all of them are sons of Jacob. Jacob is Israel. His name was changed to Israel. So all of them were named Israel, children of Israel, the Israelites. But remember that the promise was also given through Joseph, and Joseph, basically his youngest son, Jacob, said that he would be the greater of the two. So now Ephraim is also associated with Israel because he was the one that was given the blessing. The birthright went down to him, right? So it just shows you that how important that Ephraim was and how that was basically considered, the northern tribe was also called Israel because they were the majority. So that's what the man is saying now, that the southern tribe was just two tribes, just Judah and Benjamin, who they all called Judah. But the 10 were the greater tribe, were Ephraim and the Israelites, right? Ephraim consists of one tribe, but he was the leader of all the other 10 tribes. So that's what he's talking about. So he says we're the majority, right? That they were 10 of the tribes as the Israelites. So why would they convert to being Jews, right? That it should be the other way around. Right, he's still considering, this man here as being of the southern kingdom, but he, not just through the conversion piece like we taught, but he's talking about Shapiro. He's talking about for them to convert to Judaism from the religion to be modern day Jews, right? So that's important to understand what they're talking about here, and they know that like we're the bloodline. Like, why would we convert to what you're doing when we're the majority? All right. Team playing.
You are minority, and we are older than you.
All right, Maradi. That's wonderful. That's wonderful relation.
I'm not sure we will agree with this. Because the minority, remember, the minority was Joshua and Caleb. And they swallowed the 10 in the faithfulness. Hallelujah.
Yes. Yes, it's coming from another planet. But
Hallelujah.
Let me tell you. What do you call it? The Arabi. Listen. You see, just like he had said, the scattering of the 10 tribes, the Holy One of Israel promised that he is going to return them when they are the fullness of time. We are, grateful to the Most High for Judah, who has kept, the flag flying for us. And they are the reason why we are being found today. I hope you understand what we're saying.
I understand very clear.
So I want our fellow Jews all over the world, both in land and in Israel and in diaspora, to know, to accept the fact that we are of the same stock with them. No matter how ancient we are ready to join with our kings and kids in Israel to become one with them. So, we may come with some ancient traditions, and these ancient traditions will attest the fact that we are the original people, that we have not lost so much, just like the Falasians. When the Falasians came back to the land, history have it that even the state of Israel will not allow them free access, but until they show some artifacts that have to show that they have some of the utensils that were used in the temple, when they came down as Levites to Ethiopia. And that became a kind of a proof, undisputable proof, that made the nation of Israel to accept them, even though they did not accept them into the mainstream of Israel. They put them in a if you open the door, if Israel open the door today, before 6 hours,
the people with money are not with the Sabbatarians. Let us convert the Igbo race. Then the things will start happening. If we are recruiting soldiers, our people will come and be recruited and be part of the Israeli army. And they hear that the enemy is trying to swallow us. We call you to come over to here and help us. That is what we are calling for.
Did you do it?
Okay. Accept the people with open hands.
So let me ask you a hypothetical question.
Yes, go ahead.
Israel accept you now?
Yes.
I'll give two scenarios.
Yeah, go ahead.
Scenario number one.
Yes.
Israel say you need to go through conversion without renouncing Yeshua. Would you do it?
Without renouncing Yeshua?
Yeah. Would you do it?
Okay, let me just answer this question. Let me just answer it, my Rabbi.
I have to ask the hard questions.
I will answer the question. I will answer the question, not with yes or no.
Look, they're ready with the stones. I'm about to get stoned.
No, nobody going to stone you.
Do you have the culture of stoning?
Safe. No.
Hallelujah. Right. Continue.
So what I'm saying here is, let's go back to Yeshua and his story about the prodigal son. It is very, very clear that the prodigal son depicts the 10th tribe.
It could be, in one level it is.
Yes. And also, the other son that is with the father is Judah. And now, when, the prodigal son was coming back, the father was very
because the prodigal son is wicked.
Yes.
And the 10 tribes were wicked.
All right. Thank you. So, but when the prodigal son was coming back, this brother.
I'm not saying you're wicked. I said the ancestry were wicked.
When the 10 tribes, when the prodigal son was coming back, his brother was not comfortable, but his father liked it because he's been looking for his lost son. You see, he did not ask him to go through the rigors.
So are you saying the brother is in trouble because he didn't like it?
Yes. So the father did not allow him to go into the rigors of conversion, rigors of doing another thing, all that he needed to do.
He didn't simply accept him. He made it very difficult for him to return.
Yes. But all he needs to do is to remove his clothes, wash them. So I think what we need is to refurbish us, and not to ask us to go through the rigors of conversion, where you use hard object to puncture the penis of an old man. An old man. That will be very, very difficult for some of us to go through.
Wow.
Because we are already circumcised.
Yeah,
why do you need to circumcise us again?
Circumcised, and if they need to find out, they could ask us, because in our place they say, The only way to know.
So he's talking about, they're talking about conversion, right? So number one, he tried to get them to convert, even though they believe in Yahusha, they Messianic. So he's Messianic. So why is that conversion still necessary? So they're trying to say they're the more ancient because, they've been keeping the ancient customs where they're more based upon, like I said, the oral Torah, the Talmud, and stuff like that. So it's like, why do we need to go to a conversion if we're all one people? And that's just very, see how they're fighting against and debating. Why do we need to convert to be accepted as a people? And sometimes even in Israel, they allow other people to become Israelis without going through conversion if they come from certain European countries also. So you can see there's a division there also of who's being accepted and who's not being accepted. And it's causing a rift. Right. So they at least understand that they are the ancient Israelites. And then you can also hear how he said the 10 tribes are the evil tribes. Right. Where are they getting that from? Yes, there was some bad stuff that Ephraim did, even with the division of the northern and southern temple. The Jeroboam, he set up the golden calf and they start worshiping the golden calf, which led them to further sin. But also you got to look at Benjamin. Benjamin were the ones that was trying to rape the Levite and his concubine, and to the point where the man throws out the concubine and they rape the concubine all night until she dies. So it shows you that the Benjamites also had some of the homosexuality even among them, wanting the other man that was a Levite, right? And then the fact that they didn't get him and killed the concubine, he cut the man woke up the next morning and cut his concubine up in 12 pieces and sent it among the tribes of Israel. And there was a big war until the Benjamites were almost completely erased. So if you're talking about sin and stuff that's going on that's bad, number one, they fought against their own people to try to still hold on to their homosexuality ways and all their evil times, and not trying to also to accept other Israelites, right, that was coming into the town. So why the Benjamites are not even wicked? Judah had King Manasseh, and King Manasseh was the evilest king out of all of them, that Yah, even after he converted at the end of his life to receive Yah, that his punishment still went on his descendants, even until they were kicked out and sent into Babylon. So, when you start talking about wicked tribe, why would he call the 10 tribes wicked when they were just as wicked in the southern kingdom as they were in the northern kingdom? So, once again, you got to be careful of how people utilize and if you don't know scripture, you can easily get caught up in a lot of this. And he even says Gad is the wicked tribe. They were the wickedest in other videos. He'll say Gad was so wicked and try to focus on Gad. Like, why are the ones like Dan, Gad, the ones they find in Ephraim, the ones they're finding in Africa, they consider them the wicked tribes, right? And not trying to claim their, the wickedness of Judah and of Benjamin. Even us, some of us are Judah. But, that's for some later teachings as well. And then the next week, hopefully, we have time, I'll teach and will show where they teach that there's other tribes, even among the Igbos, that come from the 12 tribes. That's Igbo. That Judah's in among the Igbo, that Gad is among the Igbo, that Ephraim is among the Levites among the Igbo. So there's other people that's among the Igbo that claim other connections to other Israelite tribes as well. They just emphasize Gad because that's where the king and some of the major parts are basically being identified. All right. So I won't play the rest of this one just for time's sake. But you can see that there's this debate about being accepted and who should be on the top based upon, current day Judaism, conversion. And even though they also identify the ones in Africa as being the ancient Israelites. So that's the reason why you heard them say bo as in come, right? But in ancient Hebrew, O sound is not really there. So that's the reason why you hear me say shalom instead of shalom. So if you say bo and you put an A on it, what is it? Ba, kumbaya. So, that's the reason why it's important for us to also understand the ancient Hebrew and not just the modern. So the last one that we'll play today, I know we're running out of time, but it's important that we make these connections. So when we start talking about deeper stuff, you can kind of understand. This was in response to Kanye West. So a lot of people know about what happened to Kanye West. And he's talking crazy and he's saying that we're Israelites. And a lot of people out there don't understand what's going on. So I'm not going to play some of this because, there's cursing and stuff in it because Kanye West was talking about certain things. He's cursing. And this guy, he's giving a response from the Jewish community, a response back to him. But We're going to play it where he starts talking about what Kanye says about being the Israelites and what his take is on that as well. All right.
Backs of Jews.
Yeah, with the darker Jews, the 12 lost tribes of Israel, who we are, because we Jewish also.
Do your research on it. We have got our culture ripped from us. If we knew we were a culture and knew we were a people, the way the Jewish people know, not a race, it's a people.
First of all, we are Semite. We Jew, so I can't be anti-Semite.
Say blacks is Jews.
Blacks are Jews also.
We gotta say we love Jewish people then. We love Jewish people. We got great.
If you are Jew, why do you hate the extension of your own people? There's a growing consciousness amongst people of color in the Americas who likely descend from Israelite origins brought as slaves from Africa. Unfortunately, due to generations of trauma, loss of identity, along with the almost total rejection of this conversation amongst mainstream Jewish spaces, many Black Hebrew Israelites get to the wrong conclusions and lash out at the Jewish people. Many people around the world are on a journey to decolonize their identity, but too many are coming from a very colonized Christian framework using mistranslations of mistranslated texts from the King James Bible and arriving to false conclusions that mainstream Jews stole their identity. To those watching this video that have never heard of this, it is a fact that a large percentage of the black slaves sold during the Transatlantic slave trade were of Israelite tribes displaced in Africa. Over 20% of the slave trade consisted of Africans capturing ethnic Igbos, which have an ancient tradition that they descend from the tribe of God, in what is today called Nigeria, and selling them to Europeans. It is not white people that went inland to take black slaves. It was other black African leaders who took certain groups of people in Africa and sold them to the whites on the coast. I mean, think about it. If there was one group to be chosen for enslavement, it fits the pattern that they were mainly from Israelite tribes in Africa, which historically until this day are still being persecuted and killed. Our team is actively working on a documentary series called We Were Never Lost, where we are uncovering and documenting these stories to make us living today the last generation not to know who the lost tribes really were all along. Sometimes, even the most destructive rhetoric always contains a grain of truth. Yes, there is validity that many people of color in North and South America and the Caribbeans have Israelite ancestry, and there is an undeniable movement of return consciousness that is getting these descendants to wake up. However,
all right. So just want to show you now. This is all. I haven't shown no Black Hebrew Israelite video the whole time, right? I'm showing you videos from Jewish people that's talking about who we are as Israelites through the Igbo people. So this is not the only tribe that we come from. And it's important to understand as we go to the next slide that, you know, even looking at my DNA, right? So we talked about Yoruba. My DNA was connected, at least on living DNA, said Yoruba, and it's coming from Nigeria. So this is my DNA. You can see even the Spanish and Portuguese. You can see Angola. You can see the Native American, indigenous. I can't think it says native there. You can see, you know, but also you see Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leone. I met cousins from Senegambia. I met cousins from all these places, right? And then you see the British and Irish, right? So you can see all the connections there but it says Yoruba, right? So go to the next slide. So then this is my aunt's DNA. She allowed me to take, you see Yoruba, but then you see 4% Igbo, right? So you can see that there's some Igbo and Yoruba blend, because remember, we're not just, African Americans is not just one tribe, right? We basically got brought over here. They bred us into all these other, they didn't ask what tribe you're from, what tribe you're from. Okay, y'all from the same tribe. I'm going to, make me more slaves. No, they took all the slaves and they just kept on mixing them and mixing them and mixing them because of the profit of the land. They need more help. And they also, raped them and, and sometimes, it was the women, right, that bought male African Israelite slaves, and they also were jealous of what the white European men were doing, so they decided to have, interbreed with them as well. So that's known also. So if you start looking up your genealogy, sometimes European women will come up versus the European male. But then some of them actually just married the person too, so wasn't always a negative thing, but majority of the time it was. But then you can see some of the other tribes there. You see Bamoom and Wolof and Tikar. Tikar and Bamoom come from Cameroon. That's important to understand. But then you see my DNA there at the end. This is from 23andMe. And my Nigerian DNA that you saw on the previous slide said it comes from Anambra, right? And that is 98% Igbo in that region. So am I Igbo? Am I Yoruba? Am I a mixture of two? So just because the percentages are there, sometimes they don't test as many as one population versus the other. Now, I'm probably both, but I know, which we'll talk about next week, about my story of some of my family coming from the Igbo people and how they were enslaved and brought here by name, not just based upon DNA, but based upon names of people that got enslaved and brought to America. So I met some of those cousins as well, and they shared the information with me too. So next. So the same article we showed last week about the Yoruba, how they said, this is a Jewish federation of the Berkshires. So, they start talking about the Nigerian Jews, and they were talking about how they were brought out of Assyria. So it's like my shirt, right? This is when they were captive in Assyria, and what the Israelites looked like. And these were actually Israelites of Judea, so Lachish. But anyway, you can see how they look with woolly hair and woolly beards. And then they start talking about, at the end, you can see there in blue, it says, and the Anang, the Efik, and the Abibo peoples also have ancient religious practices. That's going to be important later on. But also in the article, if you go to the next slide, it talks about the largest group of Nigerian Jews is made up of the members of the Igbos, pronounced Igbo tribe. Right? And they talk about the white missionaries, just like we heard again. So this is like knowledge that's among other people. I just want to let you know. This is not like just some hidden knowledge among a certain group of people or like, the high scholars. This is just a website and they're talking about it out publicly, right? It says the proud Igbo Jews never forgot their origins, right? Talks about Aluda Equiano, same person that they were talking about, right? That was enslaved in the Caribbean. He published the autobiography. You can see all the same things. And then you can see that last paragraph. It says, given that the Igbo Jews arrived in Africa centuries before the Talmud was compiled, they never knew about nor followed rabbinic law. So that's the halakha. That's the conversion part of it, right? So they never got involved in the Talmud because the Talmud was more modern Judaism, right? The ancient Judaism didn't have anything to do involved with that. So the Yahwehism, as they try to call it sometimes, Yahweh as in, Yah, Wahism, that's what they call them, or Yahism, I think I've seen some places. So they wouldn't be observing those things, right? So, you can see that they also know about the differences. And that's why I say we need to go to the ancient customs and not the rabbinical stuff as well. Because Yahusha in the Bible, the Messiah, he was speaking against the rabbinical stuff, right? He said, you wash your hands, but what about your hearts and stuff like that, right? He was calling out the Pharisees and the scribes. And that's basically what came to be modern day Judaism today. So next. And this is the Henry Kissinger, who was the United States Secretary of State, and he was from the Holocaust, right? That he came, or descendant of the Holocaust, that he came over here, and he talks. This is a White House article, U.S. Department of State Archives, and it talks about that Biafra War, and it calls the Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. I try to show this with other people at work and stuff that I spoke at different places. They were like, oh no, he's talking about it and like he's just comparing them to the Jews. But as you heard, even the Jewish man talks about the same article and connect them to the remnant of the Israelites, right? And he actually, and later on in the article, talks about how they were part of the food part where they were actually pulling the food away, if I'm not mistaken. So if you go and find the article, it didn't look like the United States was favorable. Neither Henry Kissinger was at the time favorable for the people of the Biafra, the Igbos that was living at that time. All right. So next, so this is from, I think this is from Cambridge University, but it talks about how many of them would have been able to conserve some Jewish custom. And another question, the conclusion put forward by Alan Godby is he wrote a book around 1930. He was from Duke University here in North Carolina, Duke University professor. And he says, which argues for the existence of a more or less recurrent Judaism in West Africa in the same places as those from which the Negroes were taken is shared by others, such as Maurice Del Fosso. But most significant, it has been adopted by a class of educated Black Americans as key arguments to demonstrate that the Jewish religion It's a traditional religion of Africans brought in slavery to the American continent. So it just shows you that, you know, a lot of the places that these people were taken, that they actually was having, were doing some type of Judaism, as they were calling it, or ancient Yahwehism. And those were the ones that was taken into slavery. So like I said, you got to know what was going on in those regions and the people that's around them. And sometimes the other people forgot who they were too, right? It was a war and they're like, hey, you're going to go down. Just like Ephraim and Judah in the Bible, they fought a lot in the Bible. All right. So next. And this is African-American origin. So you can see where it talks about how these Africans got taken to America and what, you know, what percentages. So stay focused on the blue. So you see on the right, it says Bite of Biafra. Remember Biafra, the Biafra War, where the people were at that time. So you can see on the left, you can see the blue, right? Where's most of the blue on the left is like in Virginia, right? You can see at the top where it's 36%. That is the Bite of Biafra. And you don't see as much in South Carolina, but you also see a little bit in Louisiana as well, right? So, you know, when we're talking about these tribes, you got to know where these people were being taken from, and you'll be able to understand where your heritage lies, right? As part of this. So next, and you can see that it talks about the Bite of Biafra, and it talks about there at the bottom in yellow, it says the ethnic groups in the Bite of Biafra include, the Bite of Biafra contained a number of ethnic groups, including the Igbo, the Ibobo, the El Gala, I don't know that, Efik, I don't know how you say that. So those are the same tribes. Not talking about the El Gala, didn't mention them, but in that other article that I showed, it said those are the ones that had the customs of Judaism that was among them, right? So you can see how those groups were there, and how they were interacting, and actually how they connected to the slave trade. And this is how you can start tracking your own DNA to see if you're connected to these groups and how you connect to Israel, right? So next, I won't go into that a lot. So, you know, that's where you can see where you're talking about the Anag, the Ifike, and the Bobo, and how they also connected to the Igbos and the Yorubas as well. All right. So next, and if you just look up Ifike, I'm just saying, I'm not saying it right, Ifike, people, you can say that, you know, that they talk about how they refer to themselves in these different names. Ifike, Abarutu, Ifa, Aboron, Ebarutu, and Eboku. So, you know, you can look up those tribes, right? Because it's all the same tribes. And it talks about the bulk of the Ifikes can be found in the Calabar. Calabar is important, right? So there's a Calabar River there, right? So if you look at the bottom on the pictures on the right and look at the bottom, it said related ethnic groups. The Ibobo, the Anag, the Akampa, and I'm just skip over some of those names. But then you see at the end, it says Igbo and the Bimeleke. So the Bimeleke is in Cameroon. So what does this Cameroon tribe have to do with the Igbos of Nigeria, right? But if you look at the Calabar River, next slide, you can see that there's this cross river. So you can see the little blue, and you can see Nigeria, and down at the bottom, you can see Cameroon, and you can see this river that kind of is in the between both of them. And you can see what it's called the Cross River, and it says it's mostly in southeastern Nigeria, where they said that, you know, the Biafra War, where the Igbos lived in the other videos, that rises in several branches in the highlands of western Cameroon. So it connects those two areas. So anytime, you know, you're enslaving people or people are migrating, and usually they're taking the rivers because it's easier to flow down to cross larger masses of land through the rivers than to walk across it, right? If you make a boat, you can go down the river, right, in order to go to places that you want. So you can see how these tribes, you know, spread out, and it even connects them to the Bite of the Biafra, which is shares with the Calabar River. So the Cross River and the Calabar River somehow crosses and links. So you can see that a lot of those people are connected. So even like some of the people that I know that came and spoke at the community center when we first started the community Shabbats, he came and talked about the Bamoon, the Bimeleke, the Tikar, and how they all connected. So go to the next slide. So you can see how a lot of the, you know, even in my DNA that I showed before, you saw Tikar, you saw Bamoon, right? You saw Igbo, so all these tribes are connected through DNA, and they have similar history of being connected to the Israelites. which makes sense, right? Because they are the same group of people. And they were also the ones that were basically being targeted and sent, also in the slave trade to America. So you can easily understand now, how we're connected to the Israelite people. So that's the reason why I wanted to take the time to go through that, and how it actually connects back to the Bible is even the more. Yes, Elder Thomas, we are the true vine, right? So, it's very important to understand that because, also they got artifacts like I showed on my shirt, right? These are where the people came from, Assyria, that got taken away, and they got artifacts talking about how they were sent captive to Assyria and how they were enslaved there, taken as prisoners there, just that matches the Bible.
We are here to celebrate